You know, when we're shooting photos, it's up to our knowledge and skills to craft the best possible images. And that's about, let's call it 90% of the image. The accessories I'm going to talk about in this video will give us the remaining 10%. Notice how I said that we need to craft an image, because an image is created, it's not taken. In my opinion, pictures are taken, photos are created. There's some steps that we need to go through to create a beautiful image, like an epic location, right? The more beautiful the location is, the more chances we have to get a beautiful photograph out of it. Then we need to consider the time of the day. Are we shooting in harsh daylight, or are we shooting at sunrise or sunset or blue hour? And we need to consider framing and composition and other stuff that we need to consider, like sharpness, subject, and of course editing. But today it's going to be about the accessories that will give us that extra oomph, that extra wow. So this takes us to the first accessory that I think is a must if you like to do landscape photography and you're serious about it. And this is the tripod. That's right, our three-legged friend. The tripod is a must, because the tripod will stabilize your photos. You put the camera on it and you get those photos that are really sharp and they're not blurry. So that's the function of a tripod. And this is especially true when you're shooting long exposures, because anything slower than, let's say, 40th of a second, 50th of a second requires a tripod, because as soon as you press that shutter, the camera is going to move, and because the shutter is going to be left open for a longer amount of time, that will create motion blur, right? And you're going to have the photo all blurry and it's not going to be sharp. So tripod number one. Now of course there's a bunch of tripods on the market, and when you're considering buying one, you don't have to go for the most expensive one, but do not cheap out and buy the cheapest one, because that will give you only headaches later down the line. This, for example, is a K&F Concept tripod. I bought it specifically for my travels because it's light aluminum, and it folds in such a way that I can put it in my carry-on suitcase, and it's very easy to carry around all over the world. So what I can do with it is just bend the legs upwards, just like this, and the third one like this, and then drop the column all the way down on this side. This gives me a much more compact tripod that I can carry around, and because it's super lightweight, I don't really feel it in my luggage, so it's perfect for travel, and that's why I got it. For my last year's trip to Europe, I got this one. Now of course you have tripods that are super heavy, which are ideal for landscape photography, because the heavier the tripod it is, it can support heavier camera and lenses combos. So when you're purchasing the tripod, I would weigh the camera and the heaviest lens that you have, put them together and weigh them, and then get a tripod that supports that weight. That should be your minimum weight requirement for a tripod. So you have the heavy aluminum, the heavy weight of tripods, the heavy aluminum tripods, but those are a pain to carry around if you're hiking. Then you have these guys, the light aluminum, which are super compact, which are nice for travel. Like I said, I bought this specifically for my travels for Europe. And then you have the carbon fiber tripods. Those are a bit more on the expensive side. So like I said, these are a must for long exposure photography. They're also a requirement for time-lapse, if you're into time-lapse, or if you do focus stacking or exposure blending. These are techniques, for example, for focus stacking, to get the image focused from front to back. You need to have a tripod to do focus stacking as well. You need to have a tripod to do exposure blending, because you have to keep your frame the same. Do not move it, do not tilt, do not pan while you take those multiple shots of focus or exposure, depending on what you're shooting. Another thing that I would consider when purchasing a tripod is the head. If the head doesn't rotate smoothly, you're gonna have a bit of a trouble later down the line. But yeah, look for a tripod that has this smoothing, rotating head. It's much easier to compose your shots. Now another thing that I would look for when purchasing a tripod is the height, the total height when the legs are extended completely. I'm a tall guy, I'm 6'3", and I don't like bending or squatting when I'm taking photos. So this tripod gives me a pretty good height. Camera will rise up about face height. So that's perfect for me. So that's another aspect you would want to consider when purchasing one of these tripods. Another reason why you would want a tripod when you're shooting landscapes is when you're shooting landscapes with a telephoto zoom lens. This is a telephoto zoom lens attached to my camera body right here. And what happens with this guy is this is 70 to 300 millimeters. If I zoom in completely at 300 millimeters, let's say, because of the optics of the telephoto zoom lens, what happens is even the slightest movement that I induce in the camera body will be amplified at the end of the lens, and when you look through the viewfinder you would see like the whole world is moving. So that's why if you're shooting landscapes or the telephoto zoom, you must have a tripod for that. So yeah, landscape photography, long exposures, time lapses, exposure blending or focus stacking, get a tripod. Okay, accessory number 2. This is a highly important one if you want to do long exposure photography, especially during the day. If it's overcast outside and you have some nice landscape or water or waterfall or whatnot, or the clouds are moving on the sky and you want to show that movement in the photo, this is what you need. This is a neutral density filter, ND filter. What this is basically, it's a piece of glass, a dark piece of glass that goes in front of your lens, right? And that gives you the opportunity to slow down your shutter to get that motion blur, right? To smooth out the water, smooth out the clouds, smooth out those waterfalls. So you put this in front of your lens. Now when you're purchasing these, there's 2 numbers that you have to consider. The first number you have to consider is how dark do you want your filter to be. This is a Pro ND 100 and it's a Hoya filter, and it says here it's a 6-stop and 2/3. So I would say roughly 7 stops of light. Of course you have the ND 1000, which is a 10-stop of light, and that's a pretty good base to start if you want to start using the ND filters. This was my first ever filter. I bought it for my 35mm lens, and that brings me to my second number that you need to know. You need to know the diameter of your lens so you can buy the same diameter filter for that lens. Now there's 2 types of ND filters. There's these threaded ones, the ones with the thread, and there's also the magnetic ones. I'll show you the magnetic ones. And this is a magnetic filter, so this one, it's super simple to install and disinstall. Just boom, magnetic, right? That's it. It's much easier than the threaded ones. The threaded ones just give me headaches when I put them on, because I start threading them, they're not really threaded on, and then I take my hand away from them and they fall. Just a nightmare. So these are the best one. This is a 77mm because the lens is 77mm, the diameter. So this consequently is a 77mm 10-stop filter, right? It says ND 1000 over there. So basically you take this piece of glass, you put it in front of your lens, and now your camera cannot see anything. You can lower your shutter speed all the way to 20, 25 seconds, 30 seconds, depending on the lighting conditions, right? And you can take long exposure photos, and this in conjunction with your tripod will give you nice and sharp photos. So this was the number 2 filter. Let's get some photos with this one and I'll show you how to use it. So I'm going to take a frame of this scene in front of me and get a composition. So I'm at f11, 15 seconds, ISO 100 with the 10-stop ND filter on. And what this should do is smooth out the water. So because this photo is not something to write home about, here are a few photos that I shot in different locations some other times with the ND filter on. Okay, so this was the ND filter. Next guy on the list is the CPL filter, also known as the circular polarizer. What this does basically gets rid of the reflections on reflective surfaces, that being water, glass. If you're photographing cars, for example, you have to get rid of the reflections from the windshields. This is the guy to use for that. Also, this is perfect to get more contrast in your photos. I have a whole video about this CPL polarizer filter, so check it out here. It's a very good filter to have because it will take your photos from good to fantastic. Not much more to say about this filter. Like I said, go check out that video because they have more information and you have photo examples as well. Now, one thing I want to say about these filters, the CPL, the ND filter, the whatever filters you purchase, make sure they're high quality. Do not cheap out on these filters because you're gonna regret it. I did that in the beginning when I started using. I bought a set from China. It was a plastic neutral grad. That means it was gradual. The neutral density filter, it was gradual, so it started from dark and it faded out to clear. But I purchased those, and what happens when you purchase these super cheap filters is they cast colors on your photos, right? So when you use them, you take your photo, you're gonna see that, man, this photo is purpley, this photo is greenish, so they're gonna cast color. And another thing that they do, they soften up your photo. That's coming from personal experience. Get the good glass, don't cheap out on them, because this is an important one. You don't want color cast, you don't want soft images. Okay, let's move on and I'll tell you all about the last item on the list. We're slowly getting towards sunset, not there yet, but slowly getting there. See this log here? What a beautiful arch it created. I'm going to try to compose a photograph from behind that arch looking towards the sea. So let's try and do that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take a photo of myself standing on this log facing the ocean there. So I want to set up for that because I think it's going to make for a very beautiful image. That was a perfect demonstration of the use of a tripod because I wanted to take a photo of myself in nature, in the landscape. So you're gonna need a tripod for that. All right, so this gets us to the last piece of gear on the list that will make your photos pop, look much better. And that's the shutter release or the intervalometer. Let me show you what that looks like. So this guy, you attach it to your camera, and this will allow you to take long exposures longer than 30 seconds. Because the camera bodies, they only have the inbuilt ability to take it to a maximum of 30 seconds exposure. So the shutter stays open for 30 seconds, allowing all that light to fall on the sensor. This guy, it will allow you to shoot longer exposures than 30 seconds. You could do 1 minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 10 minutes, as many minutes as you want. Of course, if you're shooting super long exposures, that means you're going to have to use ND filters. So this, in conjunction with the ND filter, in conjunction with the tripod, will get you those super nice photos. So you connect the intervalometer to your camera, and then you set your camera to bulb mode, which is, on my camera, goes like this. So I go all the way down to 30 seconds, and then one more click puts me into bulb. And that means I can use my intervalometer as a release, and I can dial in the intervalometer here. I can dial in the number of seconds that I want the shutter to be open for, and the shutter will stay open for that amount of seconds that I preset in there. So pretty cool gizmo there to have if you're planning on shooting super long exposures, which are very nice. You can shoot some really nice minimalist photographs with the intervalometer because, like I said, it allows you to keep your shutter open for as long as 10 minutes, 20 minutes. That smooths out the water like you wouldn't believe. So look at that sunset over there, very cool. I'm gonna start taking some photos because now we start to have those colors. So these are the accessories that you might want to get to improve your photography. Besides getting the nice light, besides getting the right composition and the framing, besides having the right and the epic landscape, besides getting the sharp photo, besides, these accessories that I showed you today will allow you to take your photography a step beyond. And I want to mention that these accessories that I showed you today, they all have an immediate visual impact on the image, right? The tripod stabilizes your image. If you wouldn't have a tripod, your image would be all blurry. The ND filter gives you that smooth water, smooth clouds. The CPL removes the reflections from the water, from the glass. And the intervalometer allows you to get even more seconds on that exposure to smooth out even more the water or the clouds or whatever you want. So they have an immediate visual impact on the photograph. I'm gonna start taking some photos with this beautiful beautiful sunset here, and I think I'm gonna use my ND filter to get some really nice exposures. All right, cool. Thanks for watching my video, and check out the description. I have a free document that talks about getting beautiful photographs, the steps that you need to go through to create beautiful images. It's free, download it. My name is Adrian. I will catch you in the next video. Take care. Peace.